Let's look at Skill 28, adding fractions. Remember from learning fractions earlier in your math career that you have to have a common or a like denominator in order to add or subtract fractions. If you have that like denominator, it's a very easy thing to do as long as you remember how to simplify. If not, then you need to get that common denominator, and we're going to talk about that in this video. So in order to add fractions with like denominators, you're going to add the numerators and then write the sum over the common denominator and simplify if possible. So in the example, 7/8 plus 5/8, I prefer to add horizontally. These are adding vertically. I prefer to say 7 plus 5 is 12. My denominators were already common, and they were 8, and so my denominator stays the same. I know that 12 over 8 is an improper fraction, so I do need to simplify it. 8 goes into 12 one time with 4 left over because 12 minus 8 is 4, and we put it over the same denominator of 8, and then that would simplify further to 1 1/2. If you are still having problems with simplifying from improper to mixed numbers, you can take your 12 and divide it by 8. 8 goes into 12 one time. 1 times 8 is 8. 12 minus 8 is 4. So here is our whole number, 1. Your remainder is your numerator, and your denominator is 8, and then simplify to 1 1/2. To add fractions with unlike denominators, the first thing we have to do is rename the fractions with a common denominator, then add the fractions. So the rules will be the same once you find the common denominator. So we have 1/9 plus 5/6. There are several ways to find common denominators, and you might remember some from 5th or 6th grade, but we're going to do the method that I prefer. It doesn't matter which method you use. If you know how to do it in your head, that's fine. If you have another method, that's fine. But this is one for those of you who don't know how to do it that I would recommend that you use because it is easy. So it says, right away it tells us we're going to use 18 for the common denominator, but here's how I would get that. I use what I call the ladder method. I take both denominators, 9 and 6, right from the fractions, put it inside my box. We're going to have prime numbers, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, and they keep going, but those are the ones we'll start with. And we'll take both numbers and ask, are these numbers divisible by 2? Well, 6 is, but 9 is not. So then we move on to 3. Are these numbers divisible by 3? And they both are. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. Once you get to this point, both of these numbers are prime, and so they are not divisible by any common number because the definition of prime is that a number has only 2 factors, one in itself. So they do not divide by anything that would be common. So then we take these 3 numbers and we multiply them together. 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18. So that's the way we got that common denominator. Once we've got the common denominator, then we need to rename the fractions. So we're going to take 1/9 and rename it with a denominator of 18. To do that, we take 9 times 2 is 18, so we also have to multiply the numerator by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And then we take 5/6, and we're going to rename it with the denominator of 18. 6 times 3 equals 18, so the numerator also must be multiplied by 3, and we get 15. And you'll see that they did that here, but they didn't show you how to rename them. So over here is the only time I'm probably going to go through the renaming process with you, but that's a good way to remind yourself by coming back to this video. So 2/18 plus 15/18 is 17/18 because we keep the denominator the same, and we add the numerators, 2 plus 15. Let's take a look at the examples below and go through some of them together. Again, I like to write mine horizontally, so 4/7 plus 2/7. Denominator stays the same, 4 plus 2 is 6. 5/9 plus 4/9. Denominator stays the same, add the numerators, 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 over 9 simplifies to 1. Number 4, 11/15 plus 7/15. 11 plus 7 is 18. Denominator stays the same. And then we simplify. Now remember, up at the top of this page, I showed you how to simplify it. I do it in my head. You may do that if you know how. Otherwise, go back up to the top of your paper, look at your notes to see how to do it by division. So 15 goes into 18 one time. 15 times 1 is 15. 18 minus 15 is 3, so it has a remainder of 3 over 15. And that can simplify down to 1 1/5. If you're still having problems with simplifying fractions, you can go back to the skills where we worked on simplifying fractions or changing improper fractions to mixed numbers in order to get more information on that. Let's turn to page 56. On page 56 we have several fractions. Some of them are written vertically and some of them are written horizontally. Again, I prefer the horizontal ones to the vertical ones, but it doesn't make any difference how you do them. So I'm going to ask you to do certain problems for yourselves. I want you to do 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Now notice that 19 and 20 have 3 fractions, which is okay with 19 because they're already like denominators. But for 20, we need to find a common denominator. Actually, I'm going to add 21 on this because I'm going to show you how to find the denominator when you have 3. We're going to use the ladder method, so 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. You know, they keep going on and on. Now, 2 of these numbers are prime, and so I know that they're not all 3 going to divide by the same number. However, when you're doing 3, if 2 of the numbers are divisible by one of your prime numbers, then you can do it that way. And I know that 2 and 4 are both divisible by 2, so let's put that 2 in here. And we know that this one is not, so we're just going to bring that 3 back down here. 2 divided by 2 is 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and then we're going to multiply just like we did on the 2, but now we got more numbers to multiply. So 2 times 1 times 3 times 2. When I multiply those, 2 times 1 is 2, times 3 is 6, times 2 is 12. So now that we know that we need to rename each of these fractions to have a common denominator of 12, and then we can add them. All right, let's take a look down at number 22. After running 7/8 of a mile in a horse race, a horse ran an additional 3/8 of a mile to cool down. How far did the horse run altogether? There's our question. We're always going to underline our question. We know that the word altogether generally means to add. We're going to circle our important information, 7/8 of a mile, 3/8 of a mile. And it wants to know how far did he run altogether, so we're going to add 7/8 plus 3/8. Denominator stays the same, 7 plus 3 is 10, and then we simplify. 8 goes into 10 one time with a remainder of 2 over 8, and then we can simplify that further to 1 1/4. So now what I want you to do is 13 through 21 at the top, and then also I'd like for you to do number 23. So you have 10 problems to do on page 56. Once you finish that, you are finished with skill 28. You may check your answers with me or with your RTI teacher and move to skill 29.